Well, okay, let's get on to the review part of the show, which this week we watched Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange.
Such a strange movie.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that don't know, it takes place in like this kind of dystopian future. And the main character is like this kind of, you know, what is it like, sociopath youth and his like his friends, and they just go around like beating up and like raping people, and yeah, and then I guess like he kind of has like a falling out. He kind of has a falling out with his friends, and they set him up to break into this house, but they incapacitate him. They smash him by smashing him in the face with a milk bottle, and then the police come and pick him up. And but because he's like a juvenile, they send him to like this kind of like reform school, and then he then volunteers for like this new program where they uh, they try to remove all of like the violent tendencies out of a person. And I mean, initially it works. They do achieve the result that they're looking for. Um, but in the end, it doesn't seem to take hold, and he breaks free from the conditioning, and he then makes a deal with the government, saying, oh, I'll be your poster child, but you have you guys have to take care of me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's there's easily the strangest movie I've ever seen. I came into I've never seen this particular Kubrick film before.
I think well, if I may jump in here real fast, I think what made it like really jarring for me is I guess I'm too used to modern uh, filming techniques with like the multiple views. But this movie, it all is shot is shot mostly from one perspective, and it's a very like home movie kind of feel. Maybe it was even intentional, like how some criminals document their crimes. And so you as the audience member are almost put with like, at least in the beginning, when like the main character Alex and his gang is going around, and you're kind of put in the role of like the fifth gang member, as the person like documenting like their crimes.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I know Kubrick, he filmed it with kind of like a special technique and like a certain type of film to give it that kind of sheen that it had to it, where how everything kind of like sparkled and glowed
Right,
a little bit.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's also part of the development process of the film as well, not just the specific stock of film. But yeah.
Right. So that was kind of like what he was going for. And the movie itself is based off a book, I believe, of the same title. And I'm drawing a blank on the name of the author of this book. And something that with that book that didn't get for whatever reason, when that book came over to the U.S., and same thing with with Kubrick's film, is that apparently there was a good resolution to the book, where I think the main character's name is Alex, and he does kind of, there is like a good resolution to the film, or to the story, but for whatever reason in the American version of the book, they never got that final chapter. And the same thing in Kubrick's film, we didn't get that final chapter. So in a lot of ways, it felt very unsatisfying with an ending, because it kind of just feels like, oh man, he just kind of like went right back to where he was at the start of the film. There was no at first it kind of felt like he had done all these horrible things, and he went to prison, and while he was trying to trick his way out by getting this conditioning, and then having that conditioning work, and not having him being able to fight back, and then getting pretty much attacked by all the people that he had done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And not being able to protect himself, and in a way is like, now you are like the people that you terrorize.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're terrorizing. You can't fight back. Just
right.
Like
So it's a definite role reversal.
Right, and so I was like, that it's kind of like a just comeuppance, but then to have him, pretty much like after he throws himself out the window to like, I can't take that feeling anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He
I think that was I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and they messed with his mind, and got him to back to what he was, and then kind of supported him. That's it felt very unsatisfactory, and the author of the books, as much as he liked the way that Kubrick portrayed the characters, utilized the music and the score that's in the film, the people that portrayed certain characters, he's like, yes, all that is good, but the ending is not what I had in my book, and it's what I wanted. I wish I had been able to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Though the fact that he reverts back to his old self, yeah, it seems like a little too convenient and a little bit lazy.
Right. Because it felt like something was missing out of the film.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because you're definitely right about like the sense of not having a good resolution to everything.
Right.
Because he just so he he jumps out the window to because he's exposed to another stimuli that causes him to like feel like nausea and unpleasant feelings, and so he jumps out the window to escape it, and then only to be completely cured of his conditioning that he received. And him striking up that deal with the government, saying, "Oh yeah, we screwed you over, but yeah, just play ball with us, and yeah, kid, we'll take care of you for the rest of your life."
Yeah, kind of worked out for him, I guess. But the
But I find it hilarious though that one of the unintended triggers or stimuli or conditioning was to Beethoven, which was before his favorite composer, musician. But during one of the sessions, I think it's very iconic now. The shot of Alex, with like the electrodes attached to his head, and like the little things that keep his eyes open, so he's not able to close his eyes at the things that he's seeing. But one of the unintended stimuli or triggers was a really crappy version, or a really like lo-fi synth version of Beethoven's like Ninth Symphony, I believe it was. And so he was then conditioned to hate the thing that he loved the most.
Yeah, like I said, it was something like where it was all the things that he used to do and enjoy, where all of that was turned against him. And it was kind of like a just comeuppance.
Right. Yeah, because there's
And
like they show like really really violent attacks, and then also like they showed like a rape, and then they showed like they show concentration camps, and
all of it to the Ninth Symphony.
yeah, and it was pretty interesting when they unveiled it. They unveiled the new Alex to the world. It was interesting that it was the clerk. It was like the priest that said, that kind of like, oh, have we really cured this person, or have we just made him, feel bad? Whenever you see these, whenever he sees like these things or like these images, have we really changed his nature, or have we just conditioned him to respond in the way that that we want him to? And I thought that was a really profound statement.
Yeah, that was something else I was gonna bring up too, where you get this very deep philosophical question of, did we concerning free will,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, okay, are we just conditioning someone to respond the way that we want, or are we like, actually, are we helping this person to, freely choose to do good?
Right. Yeah. Which is like the whole point. Like every single time he was presented with a chance to, act out in anger, to perform some sort of violent act, he was, he was a sudden onset of like nausea or extreme like discomfort, came over him to the point where like he doubled over because of, the nausea or pain,
Right.
that he is now come to associate with those acts or feelings.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of chilling to note some of the parallels within today's culture, where especially the left, they constantly use weaponize empathy. So like, oh,
Yeah.
you have to feel bad for this, you have to feel bad for that, and so now it's like, I think it's gotten to the point where people have become numb. But there was a time when you constantly be told, say, oh, you have to feel bad for these people, or you have to feel bad for this situation, and it's like, so, and I think with like the whole filters for for Facebook, I think that was a way to signal that you are feeling the right feelings at the time. So like the Paris attacks, you put up the French flag filter, or
look how virtuous I am.
yeah, exactly. And so yeah, it's really interesting that I couldn't help but note the similarities from the movie and then in our culture today, and also just interestingly enough, how they got him to hate the thing that he loved the most with Beethoven. It's kind of I see a little bit of a parallel in that with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
For the elections, like Donald Trump was considered like one of them. He's one of ours. And he was on TV and this, and and even like rappers reference him constantly in their songs, like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be rich like Donald Trump." But then
Yeah.
and then he decides to run for president, and then all of a sudden, um, you know, they paint Trump to be this monster, and he's like, oh no, you're not supposed to like him anymore, and all that stuff. And so I couldn't help but see like a little bit of a rhythm in what they did to Alex's character, into getting him to hate the sound or hate Beethoven, and what the media has done to Trump, making him out to be this monster, no longer to be respected or admired, or you know, or to aspire to.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a movie that definitely still has a lot of relevance today. At least the movie itself is quite weird. It's a little bit there's a lot of more graphic nudity than I I expected, and it's not just
True.
showing like boobs and stuff. I mean, there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and that was a little bit shocking. I had no idea, to be honest, it was going to be that graphic. So if you don't like that stuff, then you might not like this film.
Mm-hmm. Or at least try to find like a PG-13 version of it.
Yeah, but I also think that
But at that point, it's just
for me,
like, why bother?
well, and I'm always like one of those people too, where I don't like graphic like nudity for the sake of just for the heck of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in this movie, it's not just there for, oh hey, let's just throw in some sex and all that stuff. Let's just throw that in there for shits and giggles.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it felt like this actually did play a huge part in the story, because it was a huge part of what the main character was. He was a horrible person who he raped and pillaged and terrorized people, from his own parents to anyone that he came in contact with. And so it wasn't just some arbitrary, it wasn't just thrown in there arbitrarily. And we see that in two, whereas as much as he was involved in that stuff at the beginning of the film, they turned him against it, all those things that he thoroughly enjoyed doing. And they flipped the script on him as a character, which that to me like makes it seem like it's okay. This wasn't just in there for the sake of it being in there. It actually did play a huge part in the story of Alec.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
But at the same time, though, it is kind of, for someone who's not expecting it, it is rather shocking. I'll just say
True.
that.
I mean, yeah. I think both of us knew to expect it. But for those of you, who are unfamiliar, with Kubrick or just like this movie in general, yes, there are some, disturbing image. There's some disturbing depictions of some violent things.
Yeah.
So just be aware. But I think, I think one of the other things that made it a little bit confusing for me was all of like the British slang that the main character, the narrator would use, and which kind of made it sound nonsensical. But
I have something to say about that, because I was thinking, it's like, man, what, I felt like I was maybe missing something based off of what the hell are they talking about.
mm-hmm.
So apparently, from my understanding is, and I could be wrong, but so this was language that was used in the book. It was in and apparently, I'm drawing a blank on who the author of the book was.
It's hold on, I got it right here. God, where the hell's it? What was it? Yeah, Anthony Burgess.
Anthony Burgess. So apparently he's a linguist,
mm-hmm.
and he utilized. So it was English, but it was like an English Russian mixture.
Right. Yeah. I'm
and
just
so
reading.
That's why, yeah, and so a lot of those phrases that were being used were kind of it was this own slang language that he had created for the sake of the story.
Right. Yeah. Just looking at the Wikipedia page here. Yeah. The book was partially written in a Russian-influenced argot called Natsat, which takes its name from Russian suffix, which is equivalent to teen in English. So basically, yeah, he was making up, his own slang using Russian.
Yeah, and that's kind of like why the language is in this film is so weird.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed.
I don't know. I think I might have leave that part out. I mean, if I was directing, I might, as an artistic choice, I might have left that out, but just for the sake of clarity of maybe like the message.
And I also wonder too, because we have to think of when this movie came out. This came out what, like 1970, 71?
Yeah, early 70s.
Yeah, early 70s. So that's the height, towards the middle to the towards the end of the height of the Cold War.
Right.
And maybe Stanley Kubrick decided to leave that in for he was trying to be as close to the book as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And he also made with wanting to kind of have that that Russian influence on there. Not that he was a communist, but at least I don't think he is. But having that type of crazy like influence, like being able to show that.
Maybe.
I think it was more to I believe it was more he wanted to play it close to the book.
Uh-huh.
And it was probably Burgess's. He was just kind of creating that language with kind of things that you wouldn't expect to have mixed. Like England and Russia is far apart at that time, or as far apart as you could think of. So maybe it was just something kind of a crazy idea that he thought up of.
Mm-hmm.
And him being a linguist was able to kind of combine those two languages together.
Perhaps.
But that's
actually
the
book was written. The book was written 10 years before the movie came out, or published.
Yeah.
10 years before.
Yeah, so that's
so when he wrote it, that was like prime Cold War time.
Yep.
And then when the movie came out, it was more towards it was falling off the peak of, I think, the intensity of the Red Scare and the idea of Russia nuking us.
Right.
So yeah. So I think maybe it was a little bit more safer for Kubrick to do that.
Well, and it's kind of funny how the first two movies that we've looked at in our Kubrick month have Russian influence in them.
Oh yeah. Dr. Strangelove and now this one.
Very unintentional on our part, but also kind of interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting.